Hi, this is Colette, and I'm here today on Witch Ways to talk to you about what it's like being a full-time witch on the day-to-day, and maybe giving you some ideas about how to move into a more regular practice for yourself. So I hope you enjoy. So I thought I'd start by just sharing what my last week has been like magically. One of the things that I do to stay in touch with the seasons is just to change the bowls and plates that I use for breakfast. This month I'm using my dishware that has violets on it because February is associated with violets. Throughout the year, I do various types of offerings. This month, I am really working a lot with ancestral gratitude and offerings. And so the way that works for me is I have a picture of my mother on my altar. And then what I do is I place water on that altar with a blessing and a prayer. And I say, thank you to the mother that bore me. I give gratitude to the oldest mother of my line, the very first human woman. And I give gratitude to the mother of all, which for me is the goddess. And I just give that a little charge once I set that glass of water on my altar and then go about my day. And you know, families are complex. Not all of us get on well with our families. You can also replace that phrase with something like, I give gratitude to my most recent, whole and healthy ancestral mother, and then continue on with the offering. If you don't want to give any kind of gratitude to your ancestral line, you can make offerings to someone who's passed over, who is a leader that you admire. Offer them blessings and gratitude, and then continue on. And of course, you don't have to work with ancestral blessings at all. This week, I did a lot of intention setting for the spring and early summer, and I checked in with what kind of magic I personally needed to do, what kind of magic I needed to share with the world, with my students, on YouTube. And if you weren't a professional witch, and most people aren't, you might just check in about your personal magic, what is important for you, what's the intention that you want to hold for this upcoming season, and what does that look like with how you share that with others. A lot of you might be in the broom closet, and so it could be really subtle. And just thinking about what is the magical energy that you want to carry through the spring season. As I mentioned last week, it is the time of year when I start to harvest my medicinal and magical herbs for the year. And so this week, the first thing that I harvested was hazel buds and hazel bark. I will use both of them in incense. They're both divinatory in nature and associated with wisdom. And as I took the bark off the sticks, I thought about maybe I will make those sticks into wands. It's a good time of year because the energy is strongly in the bark and twigs at this time before the leaves come out. I'm basically an urban witch at this point, and so I'm always on the lookout for boughs of evergreens that the wind has taken down. And right now I'm focusing strongly on pine needles that have fallen to the ground and harvesting them. I pick up the ones that are still green and am drying those because those have been one of my new favorite herbs to use in steams and in incense. They're strongly protective and they're associated with immortality, and I use them in a lot of blends. One of the things I'm thinking about sharing this year on YouTube, and if you would like that, put a note in the comments, was several different burning and steaming blends for different purposes. I do still like to have a relationship with the trees, bushes, and plants in my yard, and I have a very beautiful old walnut that I dearly love and has done a lot of wonderful things for me. And so I like to give it blessings and honorings, and it just had a lot of broken branches, and so it was time to prune it. And I was really concerned about how the tree might react to that. Trees definitely react strongly to massive amounts of pruning. So I just spent some time talking with the tree, going out and reassuring it. I lit a candle and put some branches that had fallen from the tree around the candle and charged the candle with support for the tree. And then afterwards I went out and offered it water charged with blessings from my heart and gratitude for what it does. And so I'm going to continue to offer it blessings, well wishes, and gratitude. Another thing that I do is I offer well wishings for people. You can simply set up a well and send wishes through it, and I talked about that before, so I'll put a link to one of my videos below. And this is something I just did a whole article on my Patreon page. And so this week there was a lot of calls for well wishings. I think as we move out of the winter into the spring and energy starts to move, that a lot of things are cracking open for people. I think as a friend who has some witchy skills, if your friends are open to it, you can offer to send them a well-wishing. I think that it's a great practice. As I mentioned earlier with pruning hazel, there's a lot that you can do with the bark, bud, and twigs of branches. It's a time of year when a lot of people are pruning. If it's too early for that, where you are, just start to take a look around and notice what trees might be ready in a few weeks for being pruned. One of my students brought to class several 6-foot-long elder suckers that they had pruned, and I'm still kind of sitting with it and trying to decide what I want to do with it. I want to ask the elder what it would like and how it would like to be used. Another thing that I did this week that's a little bit more advanced is that I have a dear friend who lives far away who is in a situation where she needed a lot of protection, and the land that she was on needed a lot of protection. So I worked with some friends to help hold protection for her during some critical moments when she really needed it in confrontation with someone else. And we lit candles, and then the day of the actual confrontation, I kept a candle burning for 48 hours straight and just held that intention from a distance of her being safe and protected. And that's something that takes some practice to do. It's easier to start with just sending someone protection, letting it go, and letting the candle carry it, rather than holding it for long periods of time. But for those of you who have spent more time doing witchcraft, I'd love to hear what you think about that and how it might be working for you. This week I finally took down my greens around my altars, and I keep them inside a lot longer than a lot of people do. Most people take them down after New Year's sometime, or a lot of people will wait till Candlemas to take them down. But I like to keep them up because I'm providing shelter for any nature spirits that want shelter from the winter storms. So I took them down, packed them up, took them outside, and burned them at sunset to just symbolize that I'm letting go of winter and moving into spring. And the final thing that I'm doing is finishing up my winter reading. I got so many books this winter, and if you would like to hear me go over some of them and review them, put that in the comments below. As always, every time I have in the description below a link to some equity resources. I would love to hear you put in the comments below one thing that you did this week that was magical, and I feel like that's a great tip for people to start to have a more magical life, is to just tell someone else. So this week you get to tell me, and I would also invite you to check out my Patreon page where I offer spells, articles, and extra videos starting at $5 a month, which is so reasonable and supports me making these free videos as well as being a great deal. I hope you all enjoyed today's video and this little bit more personal view of what I'm doing with my life. And stay safe